Today on Parts Hold, we're going to discuss Cliff's love of the holiday season, no matter what month it is, and we're also going to talk about what to do when the parts department is on fire. Not just our underwear, but the parts department. We're going to talk about that and much, much more today on Parts Hold.
We'll be right back.
I hope everybody's doing great today. I understand that if you look in Cliff's background, you may think that this is the Christmas episode. However, it's spring, and Cliff is in an Airbnb, and if you look behind him, you will see a snowman. I don't know, you don't really call that an ornament. What is that thing? A decoration?
What do you call that? A statue, maybe?
Sure, it's a snowman statue.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's like Frozen.
So where are you at this week?
I am in the fine state in Michigan.
Did you know that Michigan is actually one of the states in the union with the highest penetration of Chris Collins clients?
I did not know that.
Do you know what the number one state is?
I'm going to go Pennsylvania.
It is, in fact, Pennsylvania.
Is it Pennsylvania? Wow. Yes. That's incredible. I'm so proud of myself.
And then followed by Michigan, then New York. And I'm counting big groups as one. But we're well represented in the New Englandish area.
Yeah. It's funny because it's well known within any client that I have in the Northeast that I'm not a huge fan of the cold weather. However, this time of year that I'm in Michigan, it's typically cold weather and it should typically be snow on the ground. However, it is not. In fact, today was a balmy 68 degrees and windy and sunny.
Oh, that's better than it is here in Los Angeles.
What's crazy is in a couple days, it's going to be 28 degrees. Like, I thought it was a bad swing in North Carolina. Wild swing up here.
No, it's totally bipolar there. Yeah, there's a kind of funny thing. So you're not in a hotel, you're in an Airbnb?
Yep, I'm in an Airbnb. It's one of my favorite Airbnbs to stay at in the area. It's actually attached to someone's house, but it is fantastic. Like, the guy is so accommodating. It's one of those Airbnbs, you've stayed in places before that you go in and it's just not, it's home, but it's not home. Like, this gentleman goes, and this couple, it's an older couple, they go above and beyond. Like, they have K-cup coffee already here and provided for you. They have cold waters in the fridge. They have sauces if you need sauces if you're cooking. They've got everything in here, and it's really a cool place to stay. So this will make my third time staying here.
Nice. You know what the lesson is there for parts department is anticipating needs. You can make a pretty strong parallel there in that, like, the little things matter.
The little things are huge. I mean, again, just going off of here, they have extra shampoo if you need it. They have bars of soap that are not used, that are closed up. They have toothpaste. Like, the whole thing does a really good job. So I would completely agree with that there's a lesson to be learned for us.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got quite a few lessons to talk about today. And I think that, for some of you that are maybe coming into a new parts manager role, or some of you are going into a new store where maybe you just got hired, it's really, really reasonable and probably more normal that you walk into it and it feels like the parts department is on fire. So Cliff has done a really, really good job. I'm super excited to have him talk about this today in the vein of where to start. And I think that that's the thing, is when you look around the parts department and everything's broken, you can almost get paralyzed because it's like, it doesn't matter what I do because nothing's going to make it, nothing's going to fix it. But the truth is you've kind of built it up systematically in terms of like, well, no, there's a way to glue this whole thing together where you actually build the puzzle. I kind of compare it to my kid loves to do those. Have you seen like these 3D Lego things?
As a matter of fact, I have.
Yeah, and I think it's crazy. Like you can get a rose, a 3D Lego rose, and he likes to build all these things. And it's so funny that like the stuff that makes the thing look really good are the little pieces that you don't see. They're the pieces inside that help you to build a good outside. So I was thinking of like if your house is on fire and you're fixing it, you probably have to start with things that you can't always see, or just maybe part of what you're going to explain is that. That it's not necessarily all the forward facing stuff that makes you kind of make the fire go out.
Well, you definitely need a starting place, and I'm hoping that that's the approach that I can give. Is separate from, the first thing that a lot of them are going to look at are sales, and sales are certainly important. And, our gross profits are certainly important, and our net profitability, or all those things are certainly important. But I kind of want to approach it a little different manner and just have a couple key items that are starting places for me. And it's possible that one or two may sound repetitive. And if they do, let me tell you a story.
I love your stories.
Story time.
You're an amazing storyteller.
So my oldest son, who may or may not be listening to this, my oldest son played college football. When he started going on the recruiting trips to all the college campuses that we went to every weekend, and it was some great times. I really do miss that because it was time for he and I to spend time together, and it was just fun and unique experience.
Yeah, what a great father-son bonding moment is going through the recruiting experience together.
Now it worked better on the way back from most of them because most of them because we left early in the mornings, he was asleep during most of them. In fact, the college campus that the college that he ended up going to is 5 hours away from our doorstep.
And you guys went to a lot of football games too, didn't you?
Yeah.
A lot of football games. I was always so impressed because you'd fly back on a Friday to get to the Saturday game.
That's right. Fly back on a Friday, get up on Sunday morning, drive 5 hours to the college campus, watch the game, take him to dinner, and then turn around and drive 5 hours back so that I could leave on Sunday. So for any client out there that was with me during those fall months over the past, I did it for you guys. Did it all for y'all. But one of the things I found super interesting when we were going through the recruiting process was the school that he ended up going to. The head coach pulled all the parents together. The students or the athletes were out doing Lord knows what. But the head coach brought us all together, and he began to talk about, he was the special teams guy. And so he began to talk about one of my favorite things he says it's about the kicker, the kicker, the kicker. But one of the things that he talked about over and over again was certain aspects of the game. So blocking, tackling, I'm going to say. One of the things that he came out and said is he goes, they've been hearing this stuff for as long as they've been playing football. And if you come back here and I'm still here in 15 years from now, you're going to hear the very same things. And so there's a couple pieces in here when we're talking today that are going to sound repetitive, but you need to hear them. If NFL guys need to hear the same things, we need to hear the same things. If NBA guys need to hear the same thing, we need to hear the same thing. So just a couple of items in there. It's possible that you hear them and you're like, man, I feel like we've been hammering home hard on that. I'm punching in on it for a intended purpose. So I'll kind of count down backwards from the first thing that I had. But the first thing that I had, or number 5 on this list, is advisors that are ordering their own parts. Recently in a parts department that was on fire, the service advisors were ordering their own parts. I don't know if you've ever gone into a store that the service advisors are ordering on parts, but man, that's a recipe for a disaster.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, it may be easier to paint a picture of what could go right than all the things that could go wrong.
Well, certainly not that the part would get ordered, and then it certainly wouldn't get ordered for the correct RO, and then it certainly wouldn't be the right part for the right car. Like,
Right.
everything possible just doesn't sound really, really good there. So, that is funny. So you got to make sure that the right people are keying the stuff into the order.
Yeah, that's a starting place. Is that my counter people are competent and trained. So if I were stepping into something that was on fire, that's probably a first an area that I'd look at would be start with that. And then uh, this is another one that's tricky because I've gone in multiple places that this has happened, and where the parts department's on fire, and this number 4 has taken place. But angry technicians is another area.
Okay, so how do you fix that if the house is on fire? Where would you start there? Because a lot of people would be like, they're techs, they don't have anything to do with parts.
Yeah, I think So I think maybe I approach it a little bit different. I would probably start by bringing everybody together for some type of get together. It might be top golf, it might be axe throwing, it might be tire ball. Like, I'm going to bring everybody together to try to rebuild that relationship and reestablish that relationship. And um, from a counter guy that spent a lot of his time in this area, and a parts manager that did as well, and then ultimately became a parts and service director, I would spend some time in the shop. You'd be surprised what you get to learn and know from those guys that are actually installing those parts that you send across the counter.
Oh, that's interesting.
Breakfast for those guys, like, you tell me one technician out there that will not eat free food.
Specifically donuts.
I love the idea of donuts. Donuts, uh, biscuits where I'm from. Biscuits are a great one to do. Like anything like that I can just bring them together as kind of maybe an olive branch, so to speak, a peace
Okay.
offering, if you will. But I need them. I need them to know that I'm here for them. If the house is on fire, I'm going to need a couple guys to help put it out, and why not use some technicians to help put it out for me? So that would be my other approach there.
Oh, that's
Um,
great.
and again, spend some time, get to know them, be out in their stalls with them, just get to know who they are. And again, it's going to be a little bit of a peace offering. So the next couple items are in the house, inside the house. So if it's on fire, I'm going to start looking at clutter. I've never gone into a parts department that's on fire and it not be cluttered, ever. I don't know that you have, or if you have or haven't, but everyone that I've ever gone into that is a disaster, there's stuff everywhere. In fact, rumor from another parts manager to me was when he took over, they found a transmission in the department.
Just found it.
Let that sink in for just a second. Car on hand, the car is on hand, by the way. Transmission showing on order for months on end, and previous parts people just telling him that it's been on order, and it's in the department, covered up by boxes. Now, had to be some large boxes, but nonetheless, they found a transmission that was there on hand. Like, shocking to me. Absolutely
How
shocking.
okay, so this kind of brings me to this. So I think that what you're saying is that, like, so we want to first establish a good relationship with the technicians, make sure that we understand what the ordering process is, and then we identify physically what the condition of the department is, and you start to eliminate clutter. So then my next question is, if you go into a department that is a steaming, flaming pile of mess, how quickly after you get there are you doing an inventory?
So that's a fantastic question, which would bring me into the second one. But
Oh,
a physical,
I led you into another one?
yeah, a physical inventory would probably be instant. Like I'm talking, if I can get it cleaned up quickly, like these are the type of things like I'm talking 30 days. Like I've got to get it cleaned up really, really quick. And I'm doing a physical inventory. For me, as a parts manager, I'm doing a physical inventory instantly. Like it's probably going to be one of the first things that I do because I don't know what I don't know, and I don't know what I have, and I don't know the condition of anything. Um, you'll probably
Are
find
you
out.
cleaning the clutter first?
Yeah, I've got to organize it first because in the ones that I've experienced and that I've walked into, there's always parts all over the floor. Well, if those parts are all over the floor, chances are they either don't have a bin location, or if they do, they're obviously not in the bin. So I've got to get that stuff off the floor. I've got to uncover things. Everyone that I've gone into when we're talking about clutter, the shipping and receiving area is a disaster. So I need to clean that up too. But I would start, if nothing more, on a physical inventory. I'm doing a perpetual, and I'm doing 5 or 6 of them a day. And I would build some kind of board where you make it a competition with your counter people.
What would an example of a competition be?
First one to complete a row. Maybe you're doing I don't know, because we're talking about parts department. Maybe do some tire bowling. Like maybe do some box kicking out back to see who can get the best distance on box kicking. But
Like field
but
goals with
yeah,
boxes.
that's
That's
right.
so
That's right.
great.
But some way that I'm putting it on the board that, hey, we're going to do these bin checks. Let's try to commit to 5 or 6 of them a day. I have a store recently that did that. Do you realize that they've probably counted their inventory twice in 30 days just by
Wow.
just by committing to doing these bin counts?
That's wonderful. And fun all at the same time. And what are you
Yeah,
spending? $50 a month? $100 a
yeah.
month,
I
maybe?
mean, yeah, whatever. The thing that it creates for them is, much like a technician hates to not have a part in stock, there's nothing worse than being a counter person, walking back to the shelf, and the part's not there that was said that was supposed to be there. Like that
Yeah.
just doesn't feel good. I know that there's some service guys out there probably would disagree that the parts people actually like it, but I would beg to differ. They don't like walking back to the shelf and not being able to procure the part on any level. So,
Yeah.
you know, again, just kind of, talking through it, even if it's not a physical inventory where you're having someone else, some other team come in and count it, I would certainly be doing perpetuals. That would be day one, to be honest. That's probably the very first thing I would start.
Yeah, I think that you're really your next generation when it comes to perpetual. Like you've been talking about that for a long time, and I really like the idea that like you have to understand that when you do perpetual, then the physical is easy. Like it's just you're just making it better for yourself, and like I would guess you have less waste, less obsolescence. Like there's probably 40 different positives from that. But I love that you like day one when you go in, you don't have to do a physical. You can do a perpetual, or at least start the perpetual. That like what's on the shelves matters. And then whatever adjustments need to do, I'm sure you're probably going to record and track if you're doing adjustments in the computer off of inventory counts and stuff like that. But what a nice way to kind of clean house a little bit at a time.
Yeah, I mean, that's a quick way to get a good feel on your inventory. The piece that goes along with that, and this is the single most important one. Every person that I talk to, this is the one that I preach the loudest, and so we've been screaming it from the rooftops. I guess I need to scream it louder for the guy in the back, but it's the special order shelf.
Yeah. I
What
think that we've listed that in previous episodes as like that's a number one indicator that your parts department's a mess.
Yeah, I think I would challenge any new parts manager, any parts manager out there to walk to their shelf, like if you're listening to this on YouTube or whatever, pause it for just a second, walk to your special order shelf and see what's there. It's usually it's a great indication of the health of the department to be able to walk back there and everything's clean. It's a terrible thing to walk back there and find parts that were from last July.
Yeah, you have to take your dust-o-meter back there, right? If there's dust on a box in your special order bin, you're in trouble.
Yeah, if you're picking the part up and the first thing you do is wipe it off, it's probably a good indication that we need to do something. But
if the tag is brown and curling.
Right. If I'm doing perpetual inventories, that's going to be one of my perpetual inventories is that special order bin. Number one, I want to keep the stuff that's left the department off that bin location. I want to keep that bin location clear. It's the whole thing. So, a lot of those go hand in hand. But if you're a guy out there or gal that's taking over a department that's on fire, that's probably my first 5 things that I would start with in the first little bit of time.
Oh, I love it. So, what kind of things? I guess what I would ask is that, like, what are signs that what you're doing is working?
First off, because we talked about being visual, it's me looking at and having a vision of what the department looks like. The second thing is, do I have a plan and path of my inventory, in meaning obsolescence, inventory control management, ordering process, like all that kind of thing. So that's an easy way that I can look at that. The other thing outside of inventory, because we touched on them, is how does the technician approach the counter and what's the conversations like? That's an indication. Like if you go in somewhere and the technicians leaned on the counter and they're having a conversation about the game or, whatever, that's maybe not just related to business, that's a pretty good indication that there's something more going on. Like they're having a friendship, they're building a camaraderie there.
It's tricky to find the balance, right? Because you can spend so much time at the parts counter, it's an inefficiency, but the fact that they're interested in each other, that's a good thing, right? So what a fine line that is.
Yeah, even if they're having a conversation getting coffee at the coffee pot at 7:30 in the morning and work doesn't start till 8, like whatever that looks like. But man, just the health of everybody communicating fresh. I'm not suggesting that a department's healthy if everybody's friends and buddies and everything. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that communication is different. It feels different. It looks different. It is different when there's open lines, and the other side of that is they're selling our parts for us, man. I want to be friends with them.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. So I'm going to have you recap the list, but before we do, can I tell you what I would do?
Absolutely. You can tell me what you would do.
So before I walked into my new job, what I would do is I would take out a legal pad and a pen, and I would write down, what does a parts department look like that's at 50% net to gross? And I would write down all of the things and all the characteristics that would be embodied by a parts department that's at 50% net to gross. And then I would walk in and I would write down the current state and then essentially fix gaps.
Love it. Like in other words, you're looking at a parts department as a boat and you're trying to figure out where all the leaks are and start plugging some.
Yep. Because if you're at 50% net to gross, there's no leaks. So all the things that you mentioned probably are on my list and maybe a couple of more.
Sure.
Only because I want to work backwards from the outcome. But that's probably not unlike what you're doing. But I thought about it the complete opposite way that you did. It's so interesting. I mean, and there's no wrong answers here, right? So,
right.
But I would work from the outcome backwards. But let's go over your list before we wrap this bad boy up.
Number one, I want to stop service advisors from ordering parts if they're the ones ordering parts. Number two, I want to talk to my angry technicians and figure out what's going on there and bridge the gap, an olive branch. Third, I want to clean it up, neaten it up, fix it up, get the parts off the floor. Number five is I want to evaluate my inventory and start doing a physical perpetual inventories. And number one, I want to review and get my special orders under control.
Sounds like a good recipe. I love that. So I hope everybody took a couple of things out of that will help you if you're going into, and frankly, even if you have a department that's underperforming, it's not a bad idea to go in and at least look at some of these things. Maybe you don't need to do all five, but if you do 3 out of 5, you won't be disappointed with the results. So I think that that's a really, really good place for us to wrap up. I look forward to seeing everybody next time on Parts Hold.
Here to fill the order.